Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all well. I am well. It's sunny in Canada. The weather is getting nice. The lockdown, thankfully, is about to be over. I'm telling you, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm ready to be out and about, enjoying the sun, seeing friends again, going to barbecues. I don't know about you, but for me, I am ready for this lockdown and COVID to be over. This has been a week of laughter, friendship, a week that I would look back on and say, God has been good in his own way. After every rain must come the sunshine. So the week before, I told you things were not, I didn't get some good news, but last week was kind of nice. We met friends, we talked, we laughed, we wished each other well. And I hope it was the same for you. And if it wasn't, I pray for God to heal you, to be with you, and to stay by your side through all the difficulties. May sunshine come your way soon. I decided that today's poem is going to be about falling and rising. As you know, at the Aidoo show, we aim to inspire you, educate you, and encourage you to live your best life. So here we go. I Will Rise by Sega Yadav. I will rise after every fall. I will rise and stand tall. I will rise over the wall. I will rise above them all. Like the sun which never dies, though sets every night, every day it does rise. Like the ocean whose tides, many times they are down, but invariably they rise. Like the trees from seeds, they arise, and heights great, they rise and rise. After falling once, twice, and thrice, again and again, I will rise. I will rise after every fall, and after every fall, I will rise. Again, this poem is by Sega Yadav. And what am I taking away from it for both you and I? What I'm taking from it is that it's inevitable. In life, we're going to fall every once in a while. We cannot escape it. There's no escaping it for anyone. But what must we do? We must rise. Take the lessons we've learned from the fall and rise so that we can serve ourselves, humanity, and God in the most beautiful way. Today's guest is somebody I met, and I am amazed and awed by the work that she does. Her name is Nurjehan Aziz. Let's welcome her. I would like her to tell us about herself. That way, I don't dilute anything or make any mistakes. That's my way of getting out of making mistakes, you see. So, ladies and gentlemen, today let's welcome Nurjehan Aziz, a publisher and co-owner of Mawenzi House Publishers. Nurjehan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for inviting me to be a guest on the show. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for agreeing to be on the show. I hope you enjoyed my poem.
I did very much. I
Isn't
did.
it beautiful?
It is very beautiful and it is so appropriate for the time
Yes,
we're in now.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't want to mess up who you are and all of that. So I would like you to please tell us about yourself.
Okay. So I was born in Tanzania. In the times of the British rule there before independence, and so I grew up and watched the independence come through. And we got independence in 61 in Tanganyika, as it was called then. And if you look at me, I look Indian. And
it was Tanganyika before.
Yes,
I remember that name.
You remember that name, right?
Yes.
It used to be Tanganyika, and then in 1964, it joined up with the island of Zanzibar. It became one country, and the country became known as the United Republic of Tanzania.
Okay.
So the name change happened then.
Okay.
And I look Indian, and that's because in Tanzania and in East Africa in general, there was a lot of migration from the Indian subcontinent.
Okay.
People from India and the subcontinent had been arriving in East Africa for about 3 or 4 generations.
Mm.
So when I was born, there were already Indians, who had lived there for 3 or 4 generations,
Okay.
and who were, who had become Africanized in the meantime.
Okay.
Especially after independence, there was a strong Africanization push, and
Mm-hmm.
we grew up in those times.
Nice.
And there's about 1% of the population in Tanzania is actually of Indian background,
Mm.
centered mostly in the cities and in the towns,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
mainly in business and commerce and some professions,
Okay. Okay.
right?
So you
So,
grew up during those times.
right. So I went to school there in Dar es Salaam, you know, um, and, initially what we were studying was books from England, that's what we were getting.
Yes.
And, but after independence, there was the Africanization push, and we were studying a lot more of the African authors
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
schools. So, and then, I finished my high school there, went to university, and then came to Canada in 1980.
Okay.
And
Okay.
have been here since then.
Oh, you've been here since then.
Mhm.
And did you go straight into publishing when you came, or did you go to school a little bit here? How did the journey begin?
Yes, so after I finished high school, I sort of was more inclined towards the sciences.
Okay.
So I went to university and studied science,
Okay.
and have a degree in chemistry. And then when I arrived here, and I also have a graduate degree in chemistry, a master's. After I arrived in Toronto, I worked at the University of Toronto in a lab. So I didn't get into publishing right away. I knew nothing about publishing, but I
Oh,
knew that I loved books and I used to read a lot.
okay.
So the publishing came later.
Oh, the publishing came later. So when you were in the lab doing science work, you were thinking about publishing.
Yeah. So what happened was, because I was always interested in literature, and so was my husband. And he eventually became a writer, but we had grown up with reading books. And as I said, in high school, we had been exposed to a lot of African literature.
Mm-hmm.
When we came here, and of course, being of Indian background, we were also interested in Indian and subcontinental authors. So
Mm-hmm.
after when we came here and we looked around in bookstores, there was nothing that
Mm.
spoke to us, right?
Right.
Hardly any books by Indian authors, and hardly any books by African, even less by African authors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to our website, we have a little statement there, the mawenzihouse.com's website, that we had to order a book by Naipaul or a book by Gugi or Achebe. You couldn't find them in bookstores.
Mm.
There was such a lack of it. So we said,
Right.
we have to do something about it.
Wow.
So that was when the germ started.
Mm.
And we started out with a magazine first because, we had no idea of publishing. We
Right.
said, let's start with a magazine, which we called the Toronto Review of
Okay.
uh, the Toronto South Asian Review in the beginning, because we were focused on South Asian at the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which slowly evolved into the Toronto Review of Contemporary Writing Abroad. And that, opened up to all kinds of writing from non-traditional, non-European backgrounds. So
Wow.
writings from Africa, Asia, the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean, the Middle East. This was our focus in the magazine. And then the magazine slowly evolved into book publishing.
Oh, this is what I like about the immigrant story, especially the ones where immigrants come and we can't find ourselves in places where we make it a point to start something. Because unless we participate in our own story, unless we participate where we can't find ourselves, nobody is coming to tell our story, in the sense that everybody is busy fighting their own battle, right? And so if you want to be seen, you are the one that has to make your story available to people. And the other thing also, especially when it comes to us Africans, is that if we don't tell our own story, somebody will pick up our story and tell it the way they want to tell it. And then we have no excuse to complain. What do you think about that?
Exactly, I totally agree with you. And this is something that we have been also saying over and over. Whenever my husband, for instance, who's a writer, gets invited anywhere, this is what he will tell them, that write your own stories.
Mm,
Because if you don't, others will write for you and it won't be the same. It won't be what
no.
you want. So I
Mhm.
totally agree. We have to
It
do
is,
it for ourselves.
it's beautiful as I see Africans try and do their best. But I think the other thing we Africans don't know and are mostly not aware of is networking,
Mm-hmm.
right? You could have all the fancy ideas you want. If you don't surround yourself with the right people, you're going to feel alone and you're going to feel defeated. So we should continue to do the work that each one of us are doing in our own space.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the publisher and co-owner of Mawenzi House.
Mm-hmm.
So how did all that come about? You've told us that from the magazine it went to, but what are some of the things you picked up along the way that have brought you here today, as a publisher?
Yes, so when we started with the magazine, we had no idea of what we were getting into, like what was around. I mean, we just felt that we needed to have a magazine where people who were writing, who wanted to submit, could send their material,
Mm,
because the whatever was around at the time in the early 80s was very much Eurocentric.
yes.
There was perhaps they were people of our backgrounds didn't feel that maybe those were the right venues for their works,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe there would be a lack of understanding of what they were writing.
Mm-hmm.
So our magazine was kind of a place where people could submit their works.
Right.
And we found out, to our amazement, that there was so much activity. People in isolation, as you mentioned, writing away in their small corners of the country or North America or wherever, and sending in their stuff. And people of all backgrounds, South Asians and Africans and everybody, Middle Eastern, they would be sending in their stuff over the years,
Mm,
and we got to publish them. So that was one revelation, that there was so much writing activity going on.
yes, yes.
Um, and so that was when we felt confident that maybe we could start a publishing company,
Okay.
because a lot of these people also had book length works that they were looking to publish.
Okay.
And whatever was around was perhaps not best suited for their works. They couldn't find publications, a lot of them, so they would send them to us, and they would say, please, do something about it.
Mm,
That's how we started book publishing, with just maybe 2 or 3 titles a year.
okay.
And slowly that grew over time to now where we publish about 10 to 12 titles a year.
Oh my. It's busy then. It's very busy.
It is very busy, yes. And at some point, then we had to let go of the magazine publishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it continued for about 20 years.
Yeah.
But at some point, then we had to stop, because
You
we
have
couldn't
to let
keep the
it
two
go
of them
because
going down.
the book publishing was getting hectic.
It was getting hectic, yes.
Hectic and exciting.
Yes.
Hectic and
Very
exciting.
exciting. Very exciting. Yes.
Yeah. So when people bring in their, I know that when it comes to us immigrants, sometimes we don't necessarily see the good in us, right? We're doing it, but somewhere, somehow, we don't feel like we're good enough. Do you find yourself having to encourage writers, having to encourage publishers to believe in themselves so that the book will come alive? Do you find yourself doing that?
Yes, quite. It's very common. Yes, especially with young writers.
Mm,
They will send us some material, some work, and they will say, "Well, I'm not sure whether this is good, whether it's worth, publishing." So we take a look at the work. We also advise. We tell them that, look, you have material there. You have a good idea. This is where you need to. This is where what you need to work on. Um, you know, work on this and come back to us.
mm-hmm,
Or if you want to go somewhere else, that's up to you. But this is where your book is.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we find that yes, there is some. Sometimes people don't realize what the potential of their book.
Yes, yes. People don't realize the potential of their book. And people also, I think sometimes when we see a writer, we see the person out there in some field, right? Not in our immediate presence. So sometimes we like to think, oh, but look at that person. What about me? Whereas it's in us, and all we have to do is look for that person that will bring it out of us and help us. Is that true?
It's true because writing is a very lonely pursuit.
Mm,
Writing, as you know, right? You have to spend hours by yourself writing away, thinking up ideas, putting them down on paper, revising them, getting them to a point where you are happy with it. It's a very lonely pursuit. So many
mm,
times you as a writer needs an input from somebody else, somebody who is clear-eyed, who
yes.
look at your material and say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is good or this doesn't work. Sometimes, writers tend to overwrite
Mm,
everything into a book. So then, they have to be guided saying that, this is not really necessary. Make it more compact, make it more readable,
mm-hmm.
remove this part, remove that part, bring this all together. So there are those, guidance, that kind of guidance is what's
Mm-hmm.
needed,
Okay.
to a writer.
Okay. Okay. So, for many of us who have ideas of writing, like I was telling you before, I'm a very creative person. My mind is always all over the place. So today I write a little here, then I put it down, then tomorrow I go and write a little there, and now I can't find where any of them are. What advice would you give a person like me who has this beautiful idea of writing a book and seeing it in action, but are all over the place? What advice would you give us?
Yeah, I think you have to find some time every day to do some writing. That's what, all these major writers who have published several books, that's what they do. Like, you have to be disciplined in your writing.
Discipline.
Yes. And so find some time during the day, anytime. Sometimes
Mm,
it's in the night, where you can spend about a couple of hours on your own writing with
mm,
no other distractions around you. Find
mm.
that space and that time.
Okay. So you're saying that number one, discipline, and try to write a little every day, even if it's one paragraph.
Yes, exactly.
Write
So
it.
sometimes that one paragraph takes you 2 hours to write
Mm,
because of the way it's coming to you.
right, right. I find writing is like a voice that you're listening to. It sort of reveals itself. Then you have
Mhm.
to pull it. And that is why the discipline is necessary, because
Exactly.
any distraction and the thought goes away.
Yes.
All right, all right. So,
Mhm.
are you an avid reader yourself? Do you like to read?
I love to read. I love to read, and that's how I also, got into publishing because, of the, because I was looking for books to read. So, as a child, there were always these, kids' books that we read, and the reading was continuous throughout, all in English, all
Mm,
English books throughout our schooling, high school, during the holidays. I would just pick up a book and read. So reading was always central in our house, in at home in Dar. It was full of books. My father had
oh,
a lot of collections of books and so on. So there was no lack of books to read. We went
right.
to the library to get books. School library, city libraries, we all had lots of books to read. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a very positive thing in our upbringing.
Yes.
So and so even now, you have to continue with the reading.
Mm-hmm.
Now I read manuscripts more than anything else.
Right.
Reading for pleasure has actually gone down because
Mm,
so much reading for work to do.
you have to do, yeah.
Yes.
But every day you're reading something new. I can imagine, when stories are coming up, like when you're reading a manuscript, how often do you get excited about somebody's thoughts that you have to read as a manuscript?
There's a lot of exciting work, but the sometimes, like, what really excites is a story that is well written.
Mm,
Like there is a narrative, there is a good flow, there are some interesting ideas, in the way it's written. That
mm-hmm,
really is very exciting material. And
mm,
those are the kinds of works we go for. And not
mm-hmm,
just for fiction, but even in poetry. There's, some poetry also grips you with its imagery and its language,
right.
So we get excited with that.
Yeah. So how you read several manuscripts, like you're saying, you're publishing 10 to 12 books a year.
Yes,
That's a book every month.
almost, yes. Although they tend to get concentrated in seasons. So there is a spring
Okay.
season and a fall season.
Mm,
So you would have about 4 or 5 in the spring season coming out in a bunch, and then the rest of them coming out in the fall, spread out over 2 or 3 months.
wow. So
But
it's
in the
always
meantime,
crunch time.
I'm sorry,
It's always crunch time.
it's always crunch time. But in
Oh,
the intervening months, then we are working on those books anyway.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very interesting. So whilst you're reading through the manuscripts and everything, how do you know which book will be a top seller? And so if somebody, yeah, when you're reading, like you have 10 manuscripts in front of you, how do you know that this particular book will be a good one that will touch lives, that will sell well?
Yeah, we selling well is not really, we can't predict. We
Okay.
can't predict how well it's going to do. We are a very small press. 10 to 12 books is considered a small press.
Oh,
And
really?
we don't have big numbers of sales.
Mm,
Like big publishers will have, sales in the thousands or, tens of thousands. Our sales numbers are modest. But even so, what our interest really is to get a good book out into the public.
yes.
And if it gets picked up and if it sells well, so much the better.
Yeah.
But it has to come out and be available for the world to read. That's what
Mm-hmm.
our intention is.
Beautiful, beautiful. To put out a good work.
Good work, yes.
Awesome. So your company publishes books by Asians and Africans and Caribbeans mostly.
Mostly, yes.
Mostly.
Most.
Why that niche? Why that particular niche?
So that's how we started, that there was a lack of such works in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and to encourage people of our backgrounds to get published, because they were writing but maybe they weren't confident enough to get published. So we made ourselves available as a publisher to say to people, here we exist, come and publish with us.
Okay. Okay.
But this is the but people of our background, Asians, Africans, Caribbean, from people from the Middle East, their works need to be encouraged and promoted.
Mm-hmm. You are so right. You're so right. There's a lot of encouragement needed in our communities. I wouldn't call us small, but there's a lot of encouragement on every level in every way to bring people out, to tell our stories, to bring our skills, to bring our thoughts so that others can learn. Because I'm finding that, like we said before, if we don't tell our stories, that our stories remain in the background, we sort of become a second thought. Whereas the stories that exist in these communities are so beautiful. There's a lot of triumph, there's a lot of victory, there's a lot of hard work that has to come to life. And so we're grateful to your company for focusing in those areas. So give us some of the titles. Do you have some of the books that you can show?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my books here.
Okay.
But
That's okay.
Anna, going back to the last point, right? I just wanted to, speak a little to the last point that you made.
Mm,
So, why we exist is, the children who are growing up here in this country, they are growing up and they want to know the stories of the traditions that they come from,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
of the parents, where they came from. They want the stories. They want to learn those the culture that parents come from.
Yes.
So it's important for the younger generation to have books available by people who look like them and who, talk like them. For them to know about their own cultures.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that, and then I always say that, for us adults who have come from other countries and now within the Canadian system, we bring richness to Canada. We've had children here. They will be living here. But what I'm finding also as I go around in communities is that the children that we brought up here are longing for their culture. They long for their culture. So it's almost a duty for us, the adults, to now leave behind something that they will call their own.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they say, okay, I want to go back to Tanzania, I want to go back to Nigeria, I want to go back to Jamaica, there's a reference point right here in Canada where they can begin their journey to learn before they go to the various places of their ancestors. Does that make sense?
Completely, yes.
Yeah.
Right. So you were asking me about the books we publish, and so I just want to speak briefly about what we actually publish.
Mm.
And so we are a literary publisher, a small press specializing in literary titles.
What does literary mean?
So literary means fiction, poetry, non-fiction, which is criticism, like essays about literature,
Mm.
and memoirs. So memoirs also are getting to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Memoirs capture the culture of the author's, background. So memoirs are getting to be very important, and so those are the categories that we specialize in. And
Okay.
every year we make sure that each of these categories is represented. So there are poetry titles, fiction titles, non-fiction or criticism titles, as well as some memoir or two. And recently, we have also begun publishing young adult titles.
Okay.
The young adults is also getting to be very important because the teenagers, we have to capture that market to make sure that they are reading
Mm-hmm.
books that reflect our cultures.
Right. So when you say young adult, what does that mean? I just want so that if somebody is watching and you say young adult, like what age group is that?
So that's the high school age group,
Okay.
13 to 18. Sometimes a little just, first year university.
Okay.
It's their age group. And
Okay.
so many times these young adult books, they talk about teenagers, their coming of age stories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're talking about relationships amongst themselves, about the issues that affect them, the
That
younger
affects
people.
them.
Yeah,
And that gives them a place to release stress and to also actually deal with whatever it is they're going through. And once they are able to publish their book, then their age group is also able to find something that speaks to them.
exactly. And some of them are written in such a way that they are adopted as school books. And
Ah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
when they are taught in schools,
Mm,
studied.
mm. Awesome, awesome.
So, so
So
one so
go
one
ahead.
example that we have published recently is the author named Kahiso Molope. She has written a wonderful YA book. It's called YA, like young adult,
Okay.
about a young girl growing up in South Africa, going to
Mm-hmm.
school in South Africa, and she has centered her story around her family, and her school, and the issues that she is dealing with in the
Mm-hmm.
moment with this young girl about her older brother. And it's a great story. It has universal appeal, and
Yes.
it has done quite well actually.
Wow, wow. So how do you find writers? Do you go out looking for writers, or how do you get the writers?
So we usually writers come to us because we have now a list which is over 100 long. I mean, over the years, we have published books that are now over 100 in number,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a website, or our books are presented on the website.
Mm-hmm.
We send out newsletters every
Okay.
month, and for events and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is made public. So many
Okay.
times the authors come to us, but sometimes we will commission a work. We know,
Okay.
like for instance, a collection of essays by someone. We will ask an author to say, okay, why don't you write something for us, a book,
Okay.
a
Okay.
nonfiction book or something. So sometimes we do commission. We commission anthologies, which are, separate stories, for instance, written by different people, put
Mm-hmm.
together in one book. It's an
Okay.
anthology.
Okay. Okay. So you had mentioned again about the different you said poetry. You made a list of the types of, if you can say that again, so that maybe somebody is sitting out there listening to us or will be listening to us and they might catch their category in what you said. I want you to go back and give us that list again.
Right. So fiction. Fiction
Fiction.
can be a novel or a short story collection. And so we publish both. I mean, we always look at we always look at novels and short story collections,
Okay.
and then we have poetry. Poetry is sort of general poetry, about 3 or 4 titles a year that we publish in poetry.
Okay.
And then we have nonfiction, which is a collection of essays or or criticism of someone else's work.
Okay.
Let's say you have an author
Hmm.
like uh, Elizabeth Wa, for instance, right?
Right.
And somebody writes a critique of her book.
Okay.
And so that's a nonfiction. And then, there are several other critical works like that of other works, of other
Hmm.
authors' works. Those come together in a criticism collection,
Okay.
essays or nonfiction.
So
And
it
then
spans across the board.
it's across the board. And then we have, of course, memoirs, which is really a memoir of one person, writing
Hmm.
about how they grew up and, their
Their
memories,
story.
their story.
Okay. Okay. So so I just want you to give us like the journey, right? So somebody is sitting there, they have an idea. Give us a short, like a journey that they follow or they must follow for their book to become a reality. I'm just trying to answer the question for somebody who's sitting at home and like, oh, okay, there's a publisher. So I have this idea. Where do I begin? Right. So I want us to speak to that person who has had this idea in the back of their mind for a long time, but maybe due to life pressures and all of that, they don't know which way to turn. So give us a little walkthrough for that person.
Right. So let's say this person has already written something. Let's say it's a story collection, right? Maybe, she has written a story collection and is wondering now what to do with it. Many times you hear that, people are writing stories, but they don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say to them, put them all together, go over them, go over
Mm-hmm.
the stories. And one important thing I should mention for all writers is that they should also be keen readers. They should also be reading other people's works.
Right.
So they have an idea of what they want to write and how they will write it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So the reading should be continuous in the writing process. So, and so when they have a collection of short stories, they put it together, go over the stories, do your own editing first. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure that it is in a form that's suitable to be sent out to a publisher, that this is
Mm-hmm.
how you want it
To look.
to look. Go through it, because many times you go through a draft, a second draft, a third draft, and then each time you are reading your own work, you are also analyzing for yourself. Do I
Mm-hmm.
need this? Am I missing something here? I should add something. Those processes go on.
Mm-hmm. Because you're the one that has the vision of the book that you're writing.
Yes,
So, right. So it's important that you keep writing and keep rearranging the way you want the story to go.
exactly.
So, for example, if you're writing about a girl and she's 10, she's going to be 11, she's going to be 12, she's going to be 13. And each stage comes with its different experiences, different learning, different ups and downs. That is what you're saying about
Mhm.
bringing your book to life.
Yes, yes. Go through it. And then when you are satisfied that this is now complete,
Hmm.
maybe after 3 or 4 revisions, then you send it to a publisher.
Mm,
And then, the publisher, like for instance, if it's me, I read it and I say, oh, this is a very good collection. It nothing like this has been written before. It's speaking to me. I will make an offer to publish it. So
mhm,
then the offer, the way it works is that the publisher makes an offer. They sign a contract, an agreement that the publisher undertakes the work. They do,
right.
we do all the editing for it, like because it has to go through a proper editing at the publisher end.
Yes, yes.
We have a publisher, we have an editor who will do all the editing and send it back to the author for their approval and for their review. So there's a bit of going back and forth between the author and the editor.
Mhm.
And then in the meantime, it's being made ready to be produced.
Right, right.
And we are also working at the same time to think of how to promote it, because you you produce a book, but then how is it going to be known in the world? So you have
Right.
to promote it. As publishers, we do the promotion. So we
Okay.
undertake to do that as publishers,
Okay.
with the author's input.
Awesome. Awesome.
Right.
So whilst you're doing all the work, are you in touch with the writer, or once you take the book, you do the rest of the work and the writer stays out of it? How does it work?
No, we are in communication with the writer.
Okay.
The editing process involves the writer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the editor finishes his editing work, sends it to the author, to the writer, and the writer has a chance to say, I don't agree with this particular, you know, replacement of the word, or I don't agree with this, or they will, agree to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's up
Mm-hmm.
to the writer. Well, usually they agree. There
Okay.
might be one or two places where they feel that something is really important to them, that they want something.
They want something. Or
Right.
has COVID had an impact on your work? I suspect not.
Well, last year in the beginning it did. So there
Mm-hmm.
was one title we had to push back,
Okay.
delay. But overall, we were on target with the numbers of books we wanted to publish.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to do that. And my assistants, I have two assistants. One is a publishing assistant, the other one is a marketing assistant. They both worked remotely from home and they
Okay.
both did excellent work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we were able to work, despite COVID.
Despite COVID,
There was some slowdown, but otherwise we were fine.
you were on point.
Yes.
That is great. So what can you tell? I heard about something called writer's block, right? Writer's block, which I think I've had many, many, many times. So please explain what writer's block is and how to get out of it, how to just get out of it.
Uh, I know I've heard writers do have this writer's block. Um, I really don't know how to address that part.
No, oh my God. I'm trying to get answers for myself.
Um, Many writers I know, they don't have the block because they have so many ideas in their heads. It's
Coming.
really how much you have. And I don't think you would suffer from that, Anna.
No?
You
Oh,
have a lot
thank
of
you.
ideas.
Thank you for having faith in me.
Yeah, but you know, if you feel sometimes stalled, just pick up a book and read something.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you'll come back to your own work.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm asking a lot of these questions for myself. And I hope I
But I'm
hope that
sure they are
listeners,
beneficial to others.
yes, I hope there are listeners out there who are also dreaming. I'm a big fan of dreaming and making your dream come true. And I've seen people when their book is published, how excited they get and how happy they get about seeing their thoughts in their hands. So I encourage anybody out there who wants to write a book, and age is not an issue at this point in life.
Not
Just
at
find
all.
somebody that will listen to you, like Nurjehan. She's the expert. So we need to let her phone ring off the hook so that she can help us make our dreams a reality. So what excites you about the publishing business? Like what makes you sometimes when you're doing something, you could be driving or you could be cooking or something, and you just pause and smile, right? Because something beautiful crossed your mind that, made you smile or just gave you a little joy in the moment. What excites you about the work you do?
It's really the books themselves, like the feeling that, oh, I have been part of a process. I've made it possible for this wonderful book to be born,
Right, right.
It's really the book itself that makes me feel that, wow, when you see the end product,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
when you have seen the manuscript and you've worked on it and gone through all the anxieties that are associated with it, and then you see the book in its final form, and you say, wow, this is a book that I'm proud to have published.
Yes,
So
yes.
that really makes it all worthwhile. It's like giving birth to a baby.
I was going to say that. It's like childbirth,
It's really the author's baby, but it's one that
but
we
it's
have
your
enabled.
baby too.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I can imagine the process. This is why I like my creative self, right? because you get an idea and then you toss and you turn. Sometimes it's like it's going well, then it goes down, then it comes back up, and then you reach the final stage of the dream. It's a very, very beautiful, beautiful feeling, when you feel those things. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, which book has been your best, that has the most reward, and how many, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there have been several books that we feel that, oh my, they have been so good. We are so happy with the way the books have turned out. They may
Mm-hmm.
or may not sell eventually, but they just make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this book I mentioned earlier, which was set in South Africa, really made me feel good,
Mm-hmm.
because it was such a universal theme. Um, but all books that we publish, we have faith in them. So
Mm-hmm.
we do want them to do well, and they are all good books.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you bring your writers together like once a year or something to celebrate each other, or, that kind of thing?
Yes. So when it was possible before COVID, we used to have book launches
Okay. Yes.
for the new books that came out. So we would have an individual, like a book launch for an individual title. So if one
Mm-hmm.
book came out, we would have an event for it downtown Toronto, invite people to come, invite media if they come. We would have about 50 to 100 people for one book events.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the year, we would have a big launch party for all the books that we had published that year.
Ah.
like
I
like
need to become one of your writers, because it sounds like there are at least 4 or 5 parties a year.
Yes, there
No,
are.
you said you publish at least 10 to 12. So that means there are 10 to 12 parties a year. That is guaranteed for me.
Yes, because sometimes we don't have a party for a certain book because the
Oh
author is not in
no.
town or whatever, right? So
Okay.
it would be about 4 or 5, and then the big one for all the new books in November
4 or 5, and then the big one. So
for
I
all.
can count on at least every quarter a party, and then the big one.
Yes.
All right, for all you writers out there, we're talking to Mawenzi House Publishers. So, one, try and make your book come to life, because, as she said, there are several launches along the way and then a big one. So, if nothing at all, write a good book so that you'll have parties to go to. All right. All right.
Yes.
So where are you located? Where are you located?
We are here in Toronto,
Okay.
and because we are a small press, we want to save money on rents and so on. I work from the basement of my home.
Okay.
So my office is in the basement of my home, where I have my computers and all the work gets done there. But of
Okay.
course, editing and reading, and that can happen anywhere.
Anyway. So is that how you've always worked, or did that happen because of COVID?
No, that's how we have always worked.
Okay.
We've
Okay.
always worked that way, because it's an excellent way to save money.
Exactly. Yeah,
As a small
exactly.
press, you really have to be very mindful
Mm-hmm.
of costs. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, and I
Wow.
should add, as a small press publisher in Canada, that we get government funding. We
Mm.
are we get money from the Ontario Arts Council, which is Ontario based, and the government of Canada through the Canada Council for the Arts and
Okay.
Canada Book Fund. So they have been very supportive, not only of us but of all small presses in Canada
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
sized presses.
So
Mo-
that is very helpful.
It's very helpful for our survival.
Yes.
All of us, we wouldn't be able to survive if there wasn't this money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as you've been after the magazine for 20 years. Did the magazine and the book publishing go hand in hand for some time?
For some time, yes, it did.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, for the last 10 years or so, it went hand in hand.
Okay.
Because at that time, we were just getting into publishing. So
Hmm.
there would be just fewer books to publish. But as we kept increasing the number of books to publish, it became too much to keep the magazine going as well.
Mhm, mhm. That's awesome. So if somebody wants to connect with you, where will they find you? What is the website?
So the website is www.mawenzihouse.com. Mawenzi house, house, one word, .com.
So
That's the best way to get
www.mawenzihouse.com.
dot. Yes. So in there is all the. Oh, sorry, MAW.
M-A?
Yes, Mawenzi
Okay. Mawenzi
house.
house.com. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's the best way to approach us. There's a contact information on the website, and
Okay.
people can reach us through there.
Okay. So this is going to be my final question. So this year so far, how many books have you published?
So far, we have published two, but two are in the works. They are almost ready to get published.
Wow. So you've been busy since January.
Yes, quite busy. And I
Quite.
should mention we also publish translations.
Mhm.
We have published books by Indigenous writers in Canada.
Okay.
The translations are from, Africans from West Africa, for instance, who write in French.
Okay.
There's one author who writes in French from Togo. So
Mhm.
his book was published in French, and we undertook to do a translation into English.
Okay. Okay. It works like that too.
Yes.
Well, Ms. Nurjehan, thank you so much for this education. Today, I came and decided I'm going to take in all I can take in from you, learn as much as I can so that I can get all my thoughts on paper and start hounding you.
Thank you so much, Anna, for having me on the show and for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. We appreciate the work that you do. Let's all continue to do our best for every hidden writer, every hidden poet, every hidden artist who doesn't have enough confidence. But after listening to you and me, will say, I too, me too, I can do that. I can write, I can dance, I can sing, I can be me. Thank you very much, Nurjehan. Stay blessed, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much.
So viewers, that is another one for you. Like I always say, we want to inspire you. We want to encourage you. And we try to speak to all our hopes and dreams with the guests that we bring on. So stay blessed. Enjoy your weekend. It's a long weekend here in Canada. I think we can go out a little bit, go out and enjoy the sun, and make sure that you keep looking up and keep being creative. Be encouraged, be inspired. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you looking for a TV platform to advertise your products? If so, you've come to the right place. We're proud to be the platform of your choice, and customer satisfaction is our #1 priority. Let our television platform help you advertise your product and services. No matter where your prospective clients are, we have the media resources to reach them. We offer the most affordable prices, and a trial will convince you. So, contact us now and find out why so many local customers come to us for all of their advertising needs. Contact us at 416-835-313.
That TV.